off the face diaper, everything happens.
Is that what the fuck is?
Yeah.
I do not know that.
Because you're old, Jim.
Yes, I am old. It beats the alternative.
It does. It does. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
And thank you for having us back to your beautiful state of Florida here. It is Florida, right?
This is Saturday, it's Florida.
Yeah. Hi. Were you going to tell us something?
Yeah. So as you guys have heard, this is a Q&A panel, so I'm going to let you line up behind me, or else I'm going to sit here and talk to two of my favorite people.
That's fun, too.
I know, that's my too. Welcome to Florida. I like your shirt, Steve.
Thank you. Yes, here.
Wait a minute. What is my shirt? Chopped liver?
Yes, it is. I've tasted it.
Very tasty. Very tasty.
Delicious. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. So this is for Steve, I would say. And, I've been watching a lot of your shows for many, many years now.
Thank you.
My two favorite characters that you played would be Amon from Avatar: Legend of Korra Season 1, and then Orochimaru from Naruto. Both characters which are very, they have this very mysterious, creepy feeling to them. My question to you, of course, my question to you would be, what were your experiences playing them, and which role did you enjoy the most?
I love them both for very, very different reasons. I have to speak carefully because Amon is right behind you. Orochimaru was really fun and kind of freeing because it was rare in anime. I shouldn't have to yell and scream. I can speak very quietly. Amon was similar in that respect too, because originally when I was going to play Amon, they described the character to me, and the first scene that I was reading for, he was in front of a big audience. And so I was big and stentorian. And Andrea Romano, the director of that show, brought me way back down and kept him very understated, which made him a lot creepier, in my opinion, and more terrifying also. He was more unpredictable. So in that respect, they do have some similarities because the characters are both very, very unpredictable, as you know. And it's fun to take over other spots, especially sus.
No problem, my pleasure.
You've been purified.
Hi. No, and hearing this is new, you've been impersonated by voice.
Yes, I've been walking around behind you, speaking as you.
Okay, here's my question. So, this is like a very kid show that I think you two probably don't even remember working on, but do you remember Digimon?
Of course.
Of course I remember Digimon.
Okay, I would say that you got into with, you play a bunch of different, but you play Pokemon, right?
And Sagittariumon or Horomon and Paramon. I tried to get Jamaican Mon, but it didn't move.
I like this Bowman.
Yeah, I'm Bowman. Brown Billy Seaman.
So how was that experience like? Was that like, that was after I did Cowboy Bebop, I guess I was during Fox Kids, so like, how was that experience like?
Well, fortunately, we got the same director. We had Mary Elizabeth Flynn, who is now my wife. I won. It was really fun. She's a wonderful director to work with, and for both of those shows, for Cowboy Bebop and for Digimon, we worked in a room by ourselves with our director and an engineer. And she made it very inclusive and very fun and gave us more context than we could possibly use. But it was a great experience, and it was the same kind of levity in the room, I think, for both shows. We had a little more time, I think, with Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, we did. We had time to make the dub pretty good. And Jeff Nimoy also directed some of my Digimon stuff. I think some of you might have heard the story. I had just finished doing a session at Overmont, and Jeff asked me if I've ever done Children's Wallet. And, in Overmont is, where are those kids? I want those kids. And I said, oh, I haven't done, Children's Wallet. You know what Wallet is, right? The background, a bunch of kids in the background, in the foreground, behind the actors who are up front. So I went in and I gave it a shot. So this is what I did. I said, hey, where's everybody? Where are all So he said, yeah, that'll work. So after going, and I was doing that after that. It was a lot of fun.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, I am the solution.
Yes, you are. No bending. I saw you bend. I saw it.
How's it going?
Great.
Great.
As a beloved fan of Cowboy Bebop, having such an iconic ending as like Bang, is there a way you would change it, or like in your mind, like redo the ending of Cowboy Bebop?
Would I do it differently?
Yeah.
I would act better. I was really green back then, so when I watched it for the first time all the way through about 2 years ago. And that was a little tough for me to get through that because I'm a better actor now. I'm just more experienced.
That's a matter of opinion. Go ahead.
But, you know, in retrospect, that's where I was at the time, and it is the way it is because it's supposed to be that way. But in terms of changing anything, it was not my vision. That was the vision of Watanabe's son, and I think it was perfect the way it was.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom mentioned that at the beginning. It was kind of a perfect show. It was all the elements were just this amazing amalgamation of alchemy that came together for that show with beautiful visuals, great storytelling, amazing music, pretty good casting. Yes, I wouldn't change a thing.
I would. If you watch the movie, I changed the ending. If you get me.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Because we wanted to go on.
Yeah, we did.
We wanted to see. We were having such a ball, and at that point, we realized how special it was. And then, you know, we were all in tears as it did. I mean, literally, it was a very sad situation for us as the actors.
Yeah. We did fall in love with that show.
Yeah.
It was like most anime that we worked on, we worked by ourselves, like I was saying before. But throughout the course of the production, we would see each other in the hallway, and we worked on other productions, and we became really close. We are that family. We became the Bebop family. We still stay in touch all the time.
We had an open-ending text conversation that started when texting started.
Yeah.
And we, you know, it's still there. You know?
Yeah, so we were really, really sad when that ended. And when we heard that the live action was happening, we petitioned really hard to become part of that show, and they didn't hire us, and that made us sad too.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was great for what it was.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it did get canceled. So, you know, I enjoyed it. I watched it. I enjoyed it for what it was. But I don't know if you saw Mustafa Shakir, who played Jet. They did a little bit. I don't know, 2-minute bit or something. He gave a tour of the Bebop. I don't know if you all saw that. He gave a tour of the Bebop, and he went by one section where there's a bulletin board, and there was a photo of Steve right there. And under Steve was a photo of me upside down. And, you know, and my wife and I were watching it, and she looked at me, I looked at her like, wait a minute, what was that? I'm upside down, and they didn't have Wendy Lee or Melissa.
Yeah.
Remember, they asked us, they didn't ask for input about the show at all, not for me, but they did ask for photos. Yeah, we can talk about that now.
Yeah.
They asked for photos like we were going to be perpetrators, you know, bad guys that they were looking for or something, so they had us send them photos of like mugshot photos.
Yeah, wanted posters.
Yeah, wanted posters. And then they didn't really, I mean, they had their photo of you. You were right side up, you know. At least that.
Yeah.
But
It was on the fridge.
but I was upside down, and there was no photo of Wendy Lee or Melissa.
I think they were in the fridge. Don't leave things.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We found out about that, didn't we?
Hi.
Hi, you kind of already answered my question. I was going to ask you about the live action show, but I just want to say I found the show, the original show recently. I started watching it. I haven't finished it yet because of the live action. Like, a bunch of people saw it, said it wasn't very good, but told me to watch the original, so I found it. And I was curious, has anybody ever told you that too, that the new show has brought them to the old show, or have you heard of anybody doing that?
Yeah, I heard that for the first time at this convention, actually. A few people mentioned it to me. And that's why that's one of the reasons that I kept saying before the show was even in production, I kept saying, give it a chance, because all the haters were coming out and saying, oh, it's going to suck, you know, live the live action adaptations are never good. They are seldom good. But I had high hopes for it, honestly, because I knew some of the writers on the show. I knew one of the executive producers, and I trolled John Cho until he became sort of a Twitter friend. And I loved his work anyway. I thought he was going to do an interesting take on it. So we all supported the show from the very beginning, and a lot of people didn't. And we wanted it to be good. Just as fans of the Cowboy Bebop franchise, we really wanted the show to be good. So we have heard that a little bit at this convention, and that makes me happy. You know, if there was nothing else good that came out of that show, I actually really enjoyed it. I'm glad that it brings a whole new audience to what we had done originally.
Right. That was one of my thoughts too. That if it was a success, it will bring people to the anime.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of people watch Netflix, right? And but you know, I guess there are algorithms that I talk for a living. They didn't have the numbers that they needed for it to continue on,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like, I guess, disappeared into the ethos. But that was my thought, that if the live action was a success, then it would be good for the franchise. And I was thinking way back in the back of my mind, maybe Watanabe would do some more.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, right. Good luck with that.
They'd have to pay us this time, though.
Right. Yeah,
In beef.
Yeah, we were working in beef, right? We were working for food and water at that time. It wasn't, we didn't get paid much for doing it.
Yeah, we still don't.
Yeah. If you're trying to make a living as an anime actor,
Good luck.
good luck. Because you need food stamps.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. That's awesome. And thanks for watching. Thanks for giving us a chance.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to know what both of y'all's, probably like your least favorite character to ever act as was. Like, what's a character that you either just hated the character themselves, or the way that you had to speak for them?
No. Well, wait a minute. I really don't have any characters that I hate. I almost got involved in a XXX thing, but because they don't tell you, they keep it a secret. A lot of what we do, we don't know until we get in the room, and even then we don't necessarily know. We don't know the name of the project. They use code names. Like when I did Star Trek Into Darkness, we never used the ST word. It was always some type of code getting on the studio lot, and we never used the word. So I almost got involved in the XXX project, and when it dawned on me what it was, I said, I'm gone. I can't do this. And I would watch it, but anyway, that's another story. But
it's never too late to do that kind of production.
I have no comment to your comment.
Yeah. I did one of those accidentally too. They called it Project X. It was an anime, and I went in and I didn't know anything except they told me I was a creature. And then about 5 minutes into it, I noticed the creature had tentacles. And 5 minutes after that, there was a young girl, and I went, oh. And I thought, bless your hearts. I know you're enjoying this, but here's my contract. And you have to pay somebody else to do it because, that's the only thing I walked away from. But the one character that I was kind of sorry I auditioned for, please don't tell the producers, keep it in this room.
Yeah.
There's a character in Mortal Kombat called Baraka. Oh. And he starts out going, and he does full sentences and sometimes paragraphs in that voice. It hurts to listen to, it hurts to do in my throat, it sounds like vomit, it feels like vomit, and I feel like pieces of my body are flying out of my mouth. It's disgusting, it is so hard to do and to sustain that for a couple hours. So you voice actors out there, be careful about what you audition for.
Right.
Because that one hurts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the orcs, I guess I could say that was always physically painful doing the orcs. And we did a wallet session for the movie, and I think there were like maybe 8 actors, and we had a sea of orcs. There were thousands and thousands of them, and so we had to do pass after pass after pass. With 8 people, or it might have been 10. doing the voices of 1,000 creatures. And of course, they didn't want, these were orc grunts, so they didn't want anything that resembled human sounds. So we that stuff, you know, like for 8 hours, you know, and one guy had a nosebleed, and you know, after you do that, even if you get through, I mean, we're talking bypass our throat, but even then, after you do that for 8 hours, you don't sound like yourself for the next couple of days, and which means you can't audition, you can't work, and so, you know, you do, it sounds like you did one day's gig, and it takes you down a total of 3 or 4.
At least.
Yeah.
I heard that they actually recorded that for 2 days, and I was booked to come in the day after you did it.
Oh, really?
And I heard about the pain that you guys are in, and I said, you know what, I'm busy.
You were smart.
Yeah, I was working. I walked away from that one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, dodged that bullet.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
Thank you. Not easy.
No.
Hi.
So Cowboy Bebop is considered legendary when it comes to voice dubbing. And you know, a lot of people have different definitions of what good dubbing is.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you guys, what do you consider good dubbing?
Well, I consider good dubbing to be when you pay attention to the details and you don't just fit words in the mouth. A lot of us were writers for, they call us ADR writers, where we would take the original Japanese translation, we conform it to an American way of speech, matching mouth movement for mouth movement.
We call it flap.
Yeah, the mouth flaps, yeah, all the plosives, everything has to be in there. It's a very, very tedious process. So not only is it important, in my mind, to make sure that you catch every one of those so it looks like you're still speaking English, but to do it in a way where it sounds like English too. Because if you listen to a lot of really bad dubs, you'll hear a lot of justs and buts and like connective tissue that they have to do, or there's a really weird pacing of it. Where in the original Japanese it sounds fine, but it might be a sentence like, we've got to make it to the city, but it's spread out with these big beats in the middle, and it would be, we've got to just make it to the city. You've heard this in bad dubs before, and there's all these little extra words they might throw in just to make that happen. I hate when that happens. It becomes our job to sort of finesse that and make it sound like real English language. In Cowboy Bebop, our writer, Mark Handler, really took the extra time, I think, as best he could, to make it sound like it was originally in English. And I love that, and it didn't affect the storytelling either, because sometimes for me that takes you out of the story when it's a really bad dub. So we got better and better at it, and in the beginning it was really hard because nobody really knew how to do it either. And we didn't have the technology that we have now. When I started dubbing, and when you started dubbing, they were doing it on reel-to-reel tape. And we had to get the take perfect the first time, otherwise the editor had to come in with a literal razor blade and cut it and try to paste it together. Now we've got Pro Tools, we have all these other digital medium where we can record on it, we can do multiple takes, and they can patch it together electronically if they have to. So it's just gotten better and better and better as time has gone on. It takes a little bit of the pressure off of us. But with Bebop, we really had the time to finesse it, and a lot of it had to do also with our director, Mary Elizabeth McLynn, my wife, who also knew the context of the story, and she would hold that context and deliver that context to us so we knew kind of what was going on, how the other characters spoke. And she would say, well, Bo came in and he did this, and he kind of slowed down the pace of it a little bit, so we're going to take a few of the words out. And so maybe if you can sort of match that in your pacing as we do this, and if you see a few words that you want to leave out so that it sounds more natural, feels more natural, just give me your take on it. And we never have that kind of input from the directors. It's just go as fast as you can and get it done.
Get it done, because it costs money, studio costs money. And then the other thing about Mary Elizabeth, you know, she was an on-camera actor, and you know, if you have a director who's been in your shoes as an actor, there's a connection there, and she understands our plight, so to speak, you know, and she has the vocabulary to communicate what she wants, because a lot of people don't understand that a director can have a vision of something, but if they don't have the language skills to communicate what that vision is, it's a nightmare for the actor, because we're trying to figure out now, what do you mean by that when you say that? And so Mary Elizabeth was brilliant, because, you know, it was wonderful that we had the time. You know, we didn't feel rushed like sometimes you feel now. Like, oh, let's move on, because, you know, we got time. But we all were fairly green at that time doing anime. And I started my voiceover career dubbing live action foreign films. Like if there was a German movie with an African actor, Doug Stone was producing those, and he would ask me, to come in, and I did it for my father, and I would do kind of like a general African accent. But at that time, there were no beeps, and we were lucky if we had time codes that would be played under the video. And so what they do, they would show we'd have the script here, and they would show the scene, and we'd have to what they call chase the scene. We would do the scene. We couldn't stop and pick up. We'd have to do the whole scene. And so you'd have to basically memorize instantly, so that, because if you're looking down, you're going to miss. So if you look down, you grab a chunk of dialogue in your mind, and do it while the other actor's talking. You're going to look down and grab another chunk of dialogue, so you can keep it going. And of course, there was no school for that. There was no studying. It was on-the-job training, and it was so nerve-wracking because when somebody hires you to do something, you want to do a good job. Yeah. And like I remember the very first time I did it, I was thinking, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I got to figure out, watch the time code, because the scene starts at a certain time code. I grab my dialogue, and I'm ready, and I go, and I say my lines when the other actors are, and I go, I got to grab some more dialogue, and it wasn't really fun. No. It was hard. It was hard. But now with Pro Tools, they can slide it, they can compress, and so the actor it's much more actor friendly now than it used to be.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello again,
I see you again.
Yes. Steve, I'm not from the syndicate, no worries.
That's okay, I'm not worried.
So,
I can take you.
Out
to dinner.
With some help.
Easier.
Out to dinner.
So I had a question for Bo yesterday, and now I have one for you. I've seen you in different roles, such as, if you remember, Makoto Shishio
Yes.
from Rurouni Kenshin and Spike Spiegel. If you get really in character from calm and collected to more sinister and indignant, does that affect your headspace after a while of having to get in character?
Fortunately, I have all those voices going on simultaneously in my head anyway. So it's just, I have to find the right funnel to stick them in so they come out properly. But yeah, that's, a lot of it is muscle memory at this point too. When I was a much greener actor, that was a much more difficult task. But with experience comes the ability to switch on a dime. And that's what we're called upon to do more often than not in every medium that we work in. Sometimes we'll walk into a studio thinking we're going to do a Lebanese accent, and then all of a sudden I walk in and they say, well, we changed it to Australian, go. And I'll go, all right, man, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. But that's part of the fun of the acting challenge, I think. I don't see that as an intimidating thing. I see that as a fun challenge. I want to sink my teeth into it.
Right.
Yeah, great question, though.
If you're doing just your own voice, it's always like, that's kind of boring. I want to do something different. I want to do something different.
Yeah, we all have a little evil inside us, right?
Yeah, we do.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Hi.
First off, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming around here to Orlando. It's always a pleasure to go ahead and have you guys here.
Thank you.
I did have a question for you, Steve, because I was wondering if you remember a small little game that was called Valkyria Chronicles, and I wanted to go ahead and see kind of like what was your experiences like working in that game.
Is that Severin?
I believe so. The guy who drives the tank, and then there was also a character that was mentioned here as well.
I don't remember. No, dude, there's so many games, like Bo was saying before, everything's under code names when we were working on it, so I probably didn't know what it was. I honestly don't remember, and I've done over 400 games. So years ago, I won a Guinness record for the most voices in video games, and I actually had to sit with my agent for 4 months going through my own IMDb to figure out if those were actually mine. I didn't know. We had to look it up, we had to Google it, it was ridiculous. So honestly, I do not remember, but thank you for enjoying it. Okay, and for stumping me. You're like a stump prize.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you guys. So I had a question. I actually got into Cowboy Bebop through the movie first.
Cool.
So I was wondering if there was like any difference in recording that as opposed to the show.
Yes. Yeah, the show we recorded in a kind of a private studio. It was a very intimate situation. When we went to record the Cowboy Bebop movie, we did it at Sony Studios, and we were in a huge, massive sound stage with a gigantic screen. And one of the executives from Sony, I don't know if they did this during your sessions, but this guy was walking back and pacing back and forth behind me while I was recording, coming up with his brilliant ideas. He was like a pencil pusher idiot with a suit. He had never seen an anime in his life. He had no idea what Cowboy Bebop was. But he'd be walking back and forth behind me while I was recording. He'd go, I think he should do that maybe faster and maybe put a few more words into the line. And Kevin Seymour was in the room with us, he was kind of the showrunner for it, and Mary Elizabeth was directing us. And both of them were kind of going like this, oh my God, just do what he says, and the moment he would walk out, you go, okay, now we're going to redo it the right way. But the pressure in that room was so intense because we had the executives from Sony breathing down our neck doing it. Was that like it?
Yeah, well, and you remember how that evolved too, because originally we understood that they were going to use these big-time celebrities to do the voices. Because James Earl Jones was supposed to do Jet. And so the fans, you know, they had a petition, had thousands of signatures, and apparently they swayed Sony, of course, with Kevin's input and Yutaka's input. And so they used the original actors. I mean, it should be a no-brainer, right? I mean, you know, we did 26 episodes with these voices, and then they're going to do a movie with different voices. I mean, come on, right? But you know, like that studio executive marauding around behind Steve, he had no clue or no concept of really of what we're doing, yet his company was paying the bills, so he felt like he would throw his 2 cents in, and you know, we took it, and then when he left, we tossed it in the...
I think you should call him Jeet instead of Jack.
I kind of like Jeet. That might work.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi there. So my big question for the both of you as voice actors, I'm a voice actor myself, considering their demonstration recently on Baraka, it certainly demonstrates how every voice actor would face the challenges with voicing such a difficult character and the techniques to not really strain your voice. I mean, like, can you further demonstrate or talk about, like, how to prevent such strains in the voice?
Best way to prevent it is to not do it.
I agree.
Yeah, no matter how much training you have, when you're doing orcs or you're doing something like Baraka, you're gonna strain your voice at some point if you're doing it right. Wolverine is a great example too. When I would go in to do Wolverine, one of my favorite characters of all time to do, he would start out like this, but he would stay there for maybe 5 minutes, and the rest of the time I'm in the booth, he's like this. You know, goes into berserker mode. There's nothing you can do, no matter how much training you've had, that will prevent you from injuring yourself if you don't monitor that. So you have to be your own best monitor for these kinds of sessions. Now, I won't do a session like that for more than 2 hours. And something like Baraka, I try to do in only 1 hour sessions because it hurts so much. You have to drink a lot of water before and after. Make sure you get a lot of sleep. It's very, very underrated, especially for you young people who think you can survive on no sleep. You'll see, it'll catch up with you. The purpose of sleep is really to rebuild the cells that you break down, because we're all shedding cells all day long. It's even more important when you're doing that kind of work and you're doing real structural damage in your windpipe, in your instrument here. So you got to stay lubricated, hydrated. Don't drink coffee before you work; it'll dry you out. Dairy products will give you a lot of phlegm. You'll sound like that. It's actually good for Baraka for about 5 minutes, and then it just starts hurting again, and it's bad for you. Soda is bad. Candy is bad. You have to learn the things that are good for your own personal body too. A lot of people react differently. Some people work really well with honey. I don't. Honey gives me a lot of phlegm also. So you have to try out a bunch of things and find out what works for your throat best. I also have these throat drops. They're herbal Chinese drops called Golden Throat. I'm not getting a sponsorship from them, but they happen to work really well for me. And they don't repair the damage, but they can get me through to the end of the session when I feel like the voice is going. But honestly, the best thing to do is just shut up. When you're done with the session, just be really quiet, go on vocal rest.
Yeah. And we drink this throat coat tea, which is also good. And another trick is to hum. Like if you're doing those vocally challenging roles when you're on a, you have a moment, because when you hum, you're vibrating your vocal bands, some people call them vocal cords, and it's kind of like soothing them, right?
It sounds sexy too.
Yeah.
Say my info.
Yeah, I come from the very white school. Yeah. But it's, oh yeah, you just did. What you doing later?
Oh, I'm getting all excited.
We all have something excited about.
But opera singers too, you're taught to sing in your what they call in the mask, and as much as you can to keep it in the mask. Because some of the roles you have to drop down. You can't, you just can't avoid using the throat. As Steve says, you just need to cut down the amount of time that you're creating violence with your vocal bands, because it's just not natural to do that. And but to a certain extent, when you do a lot of that, your vocal cords do toughen up.
Yeah, they do.
They toughen up. And some people, they get kind of leatherized, but it's still, it's not really a healthy condition for voice actors, but we have to do it.
Yeah, and now I sing with my butt.
Is that what that was? We call them farts.
Hey, whatever works.
Okay.
If it prints, it prints.
It prints.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
So, Bo, you touched on this earlier, but I was wondering how you got your start and any tips that you give people who are wanting to voice act.
Yeah, actually, my very first voice job was as a coach in a puppet movie back before your grandparents were born. It was in 1969, and I had just started my careers in New York, and it was before I went in the military and all of that stuff. And it was really, it was really cool. It was not vocally taxing at all. It was just fun. And I didn't realize that was at the beginning of my acting career. And here I am. Most of the work that I do now is not on camera. It's voiceover. It's voiceover work. But then, I after the military, blah blah, I came to Hollywood, and back in those days, no one went to Hollywood to be a voice actor. The careers weren't there. So I went to be an on-camera actor, and as I said, I was asked to dub some foreign live action films, and that's how I got started. And then Doug Stone, the same producer, one day he asked me, he said, "Would you like to do some anime?" And of course I asked him, "What is anime?" I didn't know what it was, and so he told me, and I said, "Sure, why not?" And of course I started doing it and fell in love with it. It's just so much fun. And I have to tell you, the voiceover community was smaller back then, and a lot of people are doing it now, which is great. But we had a kind of a small voiceover community there, and we, it's just like a little family. And a lot of times we didn't audition. Somebody just asked you, like Bebop, somebody just asked you, like Kevin asked you, would you like to, I could do this? And sure, right? I remember I did a show called Legend of Black Heaven, which probably no one has ever heard of it, but it was a great little show. Oh, yay! 2 people, all right. The voice character goes, OG, and he was the lead character, and he was an office worker, but he also, at night, he was saving the universe with his music. Like when Steve was doing his musician. But anyway, I'm enjoying this song in my own voice.
I started on a show called The Guyver, and I played a character called Guyver 3, and Agito, I think, is his alter ego. And I did it accidentally. Actually, I was working in a mailroom, and the head of the mailroom was hiring for a Japanimation program. I was literally the only non-actor in the building. I had no desire to do it at all. But he offered me free pizza. I just thought, all right, I'm going to go in on Saturday, have free pizza with my friends. And I did, and they needed somebody to do the voice of a creature ripping the arm off of another creature and beating him with it, basically. And I could do that. Who knew? And part of that was from my music training. I think just being able to match the movements and the rhythm of the language and just the general being able to match what I was seeing on screen based on the rhythm and melody of it. So I did that for fun. I just did that for fun for years until they made me speak English words, and then I had to learn how to act. And that was really hard, but back then we had the advantage of watching all of the other actors on that particular show. They'd bring in 20 actors at a time, and they just kind of go up to the microphone like they do in Japan, and I got to watch everybody else, and they just stole everything they were doing. And there were some really good actors, so I had some really good crash course training in how to act. And over the years, it got better and better and better. It's not like that anymore, really. They don't do that because it was the wrong way of doing it. We had to redo everything we did in that session, by the way, because it sucked so bad.
Oh, no.
The sound was so bad, and the studio was terrible. So eventually, I felt like it was my obligation to teach people a better path. And as you mentioned, somebody will always come up and say, how do I get into voice acting? And so every panel became a teaching moment. And the people around me said, well, you need to start teaching. I said, I don't want to start teaching. I don't know how to teach. And eventually I had to do it. So the answer to your question is, how do you get into voice acting? Go to blueboxstudios.com. I have cards at my table, literally. I'm teaching online courses now. And we have 65 classes in the can now, over 200 hours of content, and built on the premise that everybody's got a superpower, basically. Everybody is a creative spirit. Everybody's capable of creating something. And whether it's voiceover or not, my goal is really to help people to unleash their voice, as we say in the class. Whether that's through art or dance or some other form of music or some poetry, anything that you do that's creative, we want to inspire you to recognize that you have that inside you. And no matter what anybody has told you, their opinion is none of your business, really. So that's what the school was founded on, and then everything else was built out on that. And we do cover training, the very specific acting training. We cover mic technique, we cover cold reading, all of that stuff. Those are the first 30 classes. After that, we bring in some of the best in the business. We just had Richard Horvitz in last week, Voice of Invaders in, and I pick his brain about how he got his start, and he's a master teacher also. He's a coach. So that's how I instruct people to get into the business, really. And I created a free master class also. So if you're not ready to get into the other classes, just check out the free master class. Go to iwannabeavoiceactor.com from D. Bradley Baker. It's a free resource. We tell everybody about all the free resources. Make sure it's the right thing for you before you get in. Because there are a lot of predators who are very happy to take your money and promise you lots of stuff in the voiceover business that have no idea how it works. So check out blueboxstudios.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey. Well, I'm going to kind of bounce off of the question that he asked about like voice acting and all that. But, I mean, Steve, you got a pretty colorful history even before you got into voiceover work. Yeah. And, you weren't really a classically trained actor. And I think it's actually pretty cool and commendable, because instead of like showing up with, hey, I could potentially do this, you have a history of getting things done.
Yeah.
And considering your earliest work and all the different hats you had worn, I think in an interview or something you said that at one point like you were like fixing fire hydrants or something.
I was working for a fire extinguisher company, basically. So I serviced fire equipment in the dirty streets of downtown LA.
Yeah. And then you got into voiceover work, and you said that was a very, very, very scary thing.
Yep.
And I was wondering, like, considering everything that happened prior and, all your job history and all the different hats you were wearing, like, did that affect your confidence knowing that, like, you may have not been officially an actor, but you know how the world works, you have dedication, you know your work ethic, you know yourself, through just being, on the earth for, a pretty long time.
Yeah.
And I was just curious about, like, what was it like to act and not officially be an actor with no experience prior?
Well, I didn't know that I was a voice actor, honestly. I thought I was just some schmo doing stupid voices on shows that nobody would ever watch. And it was fun. I was having fun. I didn't care if I was ever going to be rich or famous. That's another thing I tell my students at blueboxstudios.com. You got to do it for the right reasons. I think anybody that's a brilliant actor does it because they love the work. We certainly didn't do this for the money. We like money, but we didn't do it for the money. I did it because it was just a fun thing to do that made me feel good. I hated so many of my jobs. I was an executive at a film company. That same film company that I was hired out of the mailroom from, I became head of marketing there. I was making 6 figures and traveling the world. And I hated going to work every day.
Yeah.
But the one thing that really made me happy was getting in that booth and being somebody else for a little while. That made me happy. So I did it with no pretense of, I'm an actor, or I have to be something other than myself. I was just, oh, I get to play! Yeah! Sometimes I get paid, I don't care! Don't tell my agent. So I went in, and like you said, I get things done. My team accuses me of that all the time because we're now a company. We have to market the voice acting school and all that stuff. But basically, you know, we come up on a challenge, and I go, all right, let's do it. And they go, wait, we got to do research. And all right, you guys do the research. I'm going to do this over here. I'm an action-oriented person. That served me really, really well. So for people who are getting into this, yes, get the training, but don't get bound by the training. There are a lot of people who are so built up with, you know, all of the stuff that they're supposed to do as actors. And the one acting class that I took, this teacher told me to speak very slowly and make sure you enunciate every single word, which works great for, you know, commercials, you know, if you have to do that sort of thing. Most people don't talk that way. They stumble on their words like I do.
Yeah.
So you want it to become authentic, and the best actors really bring their own authenticity to each role.
Yeah, there is something like artistry speaking, like words in English sound different in conjunction with one another than individual.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. At least you still get to travel the world.
Yeah, I now travel the world on my own terms, though. I'm not cleaning up after other people. You know, I used to be the first guy in, last guy out, and everybody else would get to see what's going on in that city. Now I get to see what's going on if I want to, you know, and I get to talk to you guys, and we travel the world, and I get to see my brother and hang out. I never got that before. It's a whole different thing, and we have fun while we're doing it too.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that.
No, you're welcome.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, maybe speak.
This is like the last question, so it's probably nervous. When like recording Cowboy Bebop, did you guys ever like know that it was going to be so popular?
No, not at all. It was a gig, you know, and we were all asked to do it. And as I told many people, you know, when I heard the name Cowboy Bebop, I thought it was about cowboys. You know, and he talking like that, you know, maybe I've been riding a horse, you know, in a spittoon. But, and so Mary said, no, that's not what it is. You know, you're bounty hunters in the future and blah, blah, blah. And she said, but why don't we do something drastic? Why don't you use your voice and let's tweak it a little bit? And okay, you know, well, let's do that. But we had no clue that it was going to, you know, 20-some years later, that people would be asking us questions about our experience. It took time for us to realize how special it was. It started to click when I really started hearing some of the music, you know, and you know, one of the best aspects of it is that we've become a family. You know, basically the 5 of us, you know, and that is a gift that it just keeps giving, you know, because you guys have kind of got on board with us, and because of that, we get to absorb all the love from you when we go to conventions, and it's the best life to live.
Yeah. Well, back then, also, the only way that people were able to consume anime was on VHS tapes, and sometimes 1, 2, 3 episodes at a time for $85, or if you could find it. There wasn't a Toonami, there wasn't a Crunchyroll, there weren't those places of access that there are now. And we were going up against the Steppers versus Debbers back then thing. So we were just trying not to ruin the art form of anime as we were accused of. My life was threatened. The very first convention I went to, I don't remember what show it was, but I was up there with a panel of these guys from Streamline, one of the old anime companies. And there was some guy who stood up in the audience and said, "You guys are ruining anime, man. Anime should only be watched in its purest form." And they actually threatened my life. I had to change my phone number and my email address. They threatened my family. There were people sitting outside of my house back at that time. So we had no idea that anybody that was sane would ever watch these shows. Let alone that it would get out to a big audience. And when thankfully Cartoon Network, in their brilliant minds, came up with Toonami and started putting these shows on the air. And when Cowboy Bebop hit the airwaves, and you guys saw it for the first time on cable, which was new at that time, it went to a whole new worldwide audience. It was kind of amazing, and I'm so grateful that I got to be part of that too. And we're still on every Saturday night, only Toonami. Yeah, so honestly, like Bo was saying, we made these shows for us. We just made them because it was fun to do with people that we loved. They were the nicest people in the entertainment business. And I'd worked in music, I'd worked in film, I'd worked all over the entertainment business, and they were nasty. So many people were so nasty. And on the on-camera world, people are nasty. The casting process is awful. In our little microcosm, which was very little back then, everyone I met was really cool. They were down-to-earth people. We've been friends for 85 years now. As we have with 90% of the people in our business. We've stayed friends all these years, even though we can sometimes even work together in the same room. The anime industry in particular, and the voiceover industry, I think you guys might agree that most of the voice actors that you'll meet at these conventions are really cool, down-to-earth people. And that's my family, as you guys are our family too. So we're just really grateful that it worked out. So thank you for supporting our careers and giving us something to do so that we didn't become criminals.
We just love you guys. We love you.
Thank you to our amazing staff. Please thank a staff member this weekend. We wouldn't have such a great show if it weren't for the amazing people who have volunteered their time. And thank you guys. We love you so much.
Will you guys be